come once again to discuss things.
Like...
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is Steve Baxi and Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life. Hello, gentlemen.
What up?
Hi.
Yay, they're here. It's so rare to get all three of us on an episode again. It rarely happens.
I have a feeling that this is significant of things to come.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Anyway, so we are continuing Horror Month. And it's funny, Deadpoolzilla mentioned this when he was on last week, that we always seem to do a couple Stephen King movies every time this rolls around. And he's not wrong, so tonight we're reviewing 1408, which came out in 2007 and stars, what's his name?
John Cusack?
Yeah, John. For some reason, Jeff Goldblum popped in my head. I'm like, no, that's wrong.
That would be awesome.
That would have been equally interesting.
It would have been a much better movie with Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, damn. Throwing the gauntlet down already.
This is not any indication of how I feel about it. I'm just saying.
Okay. It would have been even better with Jeff Goldblum. No, like, it's an interesting thing. I remember going to see this when it was in theaters. This movie is now 10 years old, so I feel old.
Damn.
Wow. And this is a Stephen King movie that, like, I don't think it's, like, great or anything, but it's something that I kind of go back to in my head and watch every couple of years, because it's got something really interesting in it, which is connected to, I think, everyone here's favorite Stephen King horror movie, or Stephen King-inspired horror movie, The Shining. I really feel, and this is my hot take on 1408. I feel like 1408 is Stephen King trying to do what Kubrick did in The Shining. Or what he thinks Kubrick was doing. Let me put it that way.
Okay. So, based on what I know of the history of the short story and having read the short story, I don't think that's true. I think the director wanted to remake The Shining. I don't think King did.
Okay,
so yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with, like, the short story, but I, while watching this movie, was instantly hit with, like, oh, there are certain shots in this that are literally right out of The Shining. Like, they're handled exactly how they would have been handled there. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. They also choose to put, like, a quote on the cover of the box that, like, says this is the best Stephen King adaptation since The Shining or something like that. So that's, I don't know. I think that they wanted to draw a connection there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, I think there's just a lot to it where it's like, just on premise alone, it's like another evil hotel. This time it's a room, not the whole hotel. Another evil hotel that doesn't seem to have, like, a ghost haunting it or anything. It's just the place itself is evil. The way in which we got a writer staying in this place, and of course Stephen King uses writers all the time for his characters, but still, we got a writer staying in this place. He is isolated while still being surrounded by in a place where people normally are. There's just a lot of things in this that are very, very particularly signatures of Kubrick's The Shining that seem to come through in this way, and they just feel like it's King trying to go, okay, Kubrick's movie is not what I was trying to do with The Shining whatsoever, but I see what people find interesting about that, so here's what I'm going to try to do with that.
Okay.
That's just how I've always felt about it. I don't have anything to really back that up. That's just always been the kind of takeaway that's stuck with me from this.
Well, so the way the story originally goes is that the short story is only about 23 pages, 24 pages, which is rare because when you read Stephen King's short story on anything, because his books are usually like 1,200 fucking pages, his short stories are like 400 to 600 pages. So it's rare to see a Stephen King short story that's actually a fucking short story. So I actually had time to read this before we did the review. But the way the short story goes is that Stephen King has a firm belief that every horror writer at some point in time needs to do a haunted hotel story. And he doesn't consider The Shining that, because The Shining for him was like more of a family drama haunted mansion kind of thing, and it's a little bit different. And the original like first 4 or 5 pages for the short story were just an example he made up in his own writing book to explain how he edits a story, and then eventually just spiraled into its own little short story. And then from there you get the movie, and the movie's actually reasonably close to the book, except the ending's a lot different. I like the ending of the book, or the short story, a little bit better. But like it's very clearly in the book. It's not. There's very little of anything in The Shining. The way the shots and stuff are described in this and in the script are all from the director. None of that's like indicative of the style of the short story. So I mean, I think, Ian, you're right to a degree. I just think it's more about the director's take on it, because the short story only being like 23 pages, and this is like what, like a almost 2 hour, not almost 2 hours,
Hour
but like
40.
Hour 40, yeah, like it's a much longer movie than the material would necessitate, and they add a great bit to it that isn't in the short story, that is directly shining level, like sort of the specters jumping out at him that suddenly disappear. Like that's not in the book.
Gotcha. Okay. And see, I found a lot of that stuff really interesting. It's funny to talk about this after talking about Christine, because apparently King, or people that like King, like to use the trick of the evil non-human object communicates via radio. Because Christine did the whole like playing the 50s music, people knocking but they can't come in. And then this has the recurring track, "We've only just begun." I really love that song. That is such a perfect song choice for this movie.
I fucking love how snarky this ghost is to be like that. Where like he thinks this is fine, and the radio's like, nope, it's only just begun. You're such an asshole for doing that.
Well, like the really interesting thing that I noticed about this movie, and I have conflicting feelings on this, because like I think the best time you'll ever watch this movie is your first time, because of that, you know, little tease of, oh no, you thought he was safe, he's fucking not. And that leaves you questioning the rest of the real ending of the movie. Excuse me. The real ending of the movie. So I think the best time you'll ever watch this is the first time through. That being said, there's things about this that actually want you to watch it multiple times. For example, the first time the radio kicks on and starts the countdown clock is almost to a dot 40 minutes into an hour and 40-minute movie.
That's
and so badass. Yeah, that, like, I just got curious about that as I was watching it, so I pulled up the timestamp, and it's like, it was like 39:42, and the movie had basically an hour left of runtime. Like, so it's not the second, like, it's 20 minutes until he walks into 1408, and then he spends about 20 minutes, you know, farting around in the room and getting just a little unnerved by a handful of things. But it is at the 40-minute mark, almost to the dot, that, like, the shit starts to get fucking real. So, okay, one thing that's interesting about this is this has a lot of jump scares, which, of course, The Shining does not. The Shining has, like, moments, like, a handful of jump scares, but not nearly as many as this has. Just... Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were gonna keep going with that, but no, I mean, I agree. I'll just go ahead and say I really like this movie. I think it's really good, and I think the jump scares in this work well, particularly because Stephen King. One of the quintessential themes in Stephen King literature in general is just the idea of how much what you believe in determines how you experience what you're afraid of. So, like, you got Salem's Lot, crosses only work on a vampire if you already believe in it. The way the Shining book deals with it is more along the lines of Danny slowly coming to realize what his powers are and how that can help him save everyone. It being a very similar thing to, like, conquering your fear and stuff like that. So, the idea that this is a writer that, more uniquely than other Stephen King protagonists, absolutely does not believe in what he's doing, makes it interesting that jump scares are the way that we keep frightening him, because the scares are almost really cheap, and it almost goes in and say, and the book deals with this more than the movie does, but like that he feels guilty about what he's doing, and that he himself thinks he's kind of like a hack or a cheap writer. And so the scares are the same thing, and so the room trying to make him learn his lesson in the same way he sort of built himself up to this point is really interesting, I think.
Yeah. You know, one thing that gets me and that I think is like a little weak, and I want to get Rasko's thoughts on this, because it's just, I think it is the hands down weakest line in the entire picture, is when his first hour is up and he gets on the phone with, like, he's on the phone with the room, which is interesting. But, like, he asks the room specifically, why don't you just kill me? And the room says, because all guests enjoy free will. And I really, really dislike that line and that reasoning for why he has to kill himself. I don't know. What do you think of that, Rasko?
I don't know what the problem is exactly with that.
I don't know, because, like, you know, when you get the moment where Samuel Jackson talks about how a maid got trapped in the bathroom, and she was only in there for 10 minutes, but she was blind after. Like, and how he doesn't allow people to stay in 1408 anymore because there have been 4 deaths in there since he started working. It's disappointing because it feels like the room is now just waiting for someone else to go in it, just using every opportunity it can get, even if it's just such an isolated incident as the maid being trapped in the bathroom. It seems to be capitalizing on every opportunity. The thing I would prefer, I guess, and the thing that I think would be more consistent is an exchange to the degree of, like, why don't you kill me? And then, I don't know, maybe for the song to kick in again or something. Like, something to the effect of, it doesn't want to kill you, it wants to torment you. It has fun doing this. And just the idea of, oh, you have free will. I don't know, like, something about the way that line played really, like, is the most irksome thing to me about this movie.
I honestly, I don't understand where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on that, too. Because, like, I thought the phone was being snarky. Like, I don't see why that line suddenly excludes the possibility of the room just wants to torture you. I think maybe it's a little bit on the nose. I mean, I kind of like the idea of the room wants you to kill yourself, partly because that's the joy and partly because it's almost like an ironic torture. Where, like, the free will thing's fun in that, like, this is a guy that doesn't, like, believe in anything. And then suddenly the room's like, well, you don't believe in anything, just kill yourself. That's the one thing you apparently do believe in, is yourself, because you're a selfish asshole, and that's why you're here.
Fair. I don't know. Maybe it's just the particular wording of that line, because I don't think
it's a well-written line, maybe, yeah, but, like, I don't think the word choice inherently is the problem.
I don't know. It just feels so out of place compared to everything else, and it doesn't in and of itself communicate to me what I feel the room is trying to do. And, at that point, I don't feel like the room should want him to kill himself, and that seems to be encouraging him to do it. I feel like the room should want him to keep on fighting because it wants to fuck with him more. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
It's weird. This is the thing with, like, haunted movies that always kind of bother me, which is the specter, the ghost, the thing that is doing the haunting, I feel like on some level, its only motivation is whatever's convenient for the scene. And Stephen King, even in his books, has never escaped this. Where like it's the curse of having to write horror fiction when you want to write about the people, is that the ghost shouldn't really matter, and the ghost is just a tool. And I like for the ghost to be a character too. So like the thing with the room would be a lot more interesting to me, at least, if like we knew what was causing the haunting, or like why it felt the need to torture people, or why its creation is so ironic. Like I don't fucking know. There was a psychiatrist who killed himself in there, and now he enjoys just fucking with people in their heads. Like something, you know?
Hugo Strange lived here once.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Like I don't know. The ghost is really random. I appreciate like the metaphor and the artistry of what's being done with the main character. I just kind of wish I knew why the ghost was doing it. Like, why does he care?
Mm-hmm.
And I think The Shining escapes this a little bit because like the hotel, everyone in it, like it's its own personality. It's multifaceted. It's just there's so much happening in that place that it is kind of like quietly going mad. And in this, it's one room, and one room doesn't have the same sort of mysticism. I think that's the hotel does.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. Because I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think Samuel Jackson might have the best line in this movie, which is, "Oh, it's not a phantom or a ghost. It's a fucking evil room."
I do like that. Yeah.
It's such a great Samuel Jackson. Like, go ahead, Rascal.
I love when he opens his fridge and he sees Samuel L. Jackson in the fridge, and then he starts like freaking out, like fucking up the fridge. That's like my favorite shot in the entire movie. It's just him just like messing with the fridge, like and he's like shaking it, and all this shit's flying out of it.
This must have been the hardest movie to film because, like, everything would have been so bizarre. It's like, in this scene, you're hallucinating a dude standing on the other side of the fridge. Now you have to fuck shit up because you're terrified. Go.
Which is something I want to really commend John Cusack on, because here's the thing, like, he's not an actor that I typically think that I like. Like, when I hear his name, I'm like, yeah, I know who he is. He's the guy in, like, 2012. That movie sucks. I always go to that for some reason. But the thing is, when you see him in other things, he's actually a really good actor. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, there's a lot of, like, him talking to himself. This isn't a movie where it's, like, somebody alone just, like, reacting to things and seeing things and not saying anything. Because he's a writer, it kind of seems very much in character for him to be kind of speaking out loud so much. And I think that as an actor, he just sells that as like a personality quirk in a really interesting way. And I think that like he really carries this movie in a lot of ways.
I mean,
yeah, I think he's surprisingly good. Every time I see John Cusack, I'm like, you know, it's kind of like Tom Hanks and Alan Rickman tried to have the perfect acting child and they fucked up. But he's actually pretty good in this, and that's the first time I could say that about him.
Really? You don't like any of his movies, huh?
I mean, I don't like any of his movies. I just don't think he's particularly good in any of his movies. And in this, I feel like he really got to do something, and I enjoyed it.
Okay, that's fair.
He played Richard Nixon once, and I thought it was the weirdest Richard Nixon I've ever seen.
Interesting. I don't know. Like, I really like John Cusack in this. I think the interesting thing about this is you could almost make this a stage play.
Yeah.
And so this very much could be a damn near one-man show.
Ooh.
And I mean, like, it is all dependent on how well the actor can sell everything. Because, like, aside from a handful of scenes, I don't think there's anything that happens here that you could not on some level pull off on stage. You know, obviously you can't really flood the whole room, but you can do a different type of transition. He doesn't have to be a surfer, you know, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot here that I'm like, man, that's a really, really interesting, you know, character moment. And it's just really tough like range of emotions that he has to go through in acting here. Like when he first gets the scare with the chocolates on the bed and stuff, and he rushes through the hotel room trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, all right, fine, let's Nancy Drew this shit. All right, so looking out the window, put the chocolates on the bed, turn on the radio, run into the bathroom, do the Houdini shit with the toilet paper, which means they're in the living room. And he, like, runs, and, like, there's so much about that, and I legit feel like I almost feel like he damn near improvised that scene.
Possibly.
Just because it comes off as so natural of, like, what could the rational explanation of things be here?
Yeah.
When I'm thinking that there's someone in the room with me.
Yeah, like, I could totally see that happening. I think that there might be a few lines that he kind of ad-libs here and there, like, when he's talking about his book, and, like, the woman asks him about the scariest place he's ever been, and then he, like, says this place, and he's like, it just had this... And then he does this, like, hand motion where he's kind of, like, rubbing his fingertips together. He's like, it just had this, like this thickness in the air, you know, you could feel it. And it was just, like, a really weird, specific line delivery that you would not write in a script, that I know he probably, like, read and then, like, changed into something that sounded a little bit more fluid and, like, off the dome. And I just thought that was, like, that's probably littered throughout this movie.
I mean, you would think it would have to be with so much emotion going on stage, like on camera. It's really hard to be, you know, script accurate. There are actors who are, you know, classically trained and they say every line exactly how it's written, and then there's, you know, the method guys who kind of dive into their performance, and some of them practically rewrite the script on the set. Then there are the guys in between who really get into the performance, get attached to the emotion, but will still mainly stick to the script, but ad-lib and change things along the way. And that's probably the most interesting performance for me to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it helps that the premise is so low-key. If we're going to go back to The Shining again, like, Jack Nicholson has a lot to work with in that movie, particularly in reaction to, like, the ghosts in the hotel and stuff like that, where this is... I feel like you almost don't write this movie. The movie just kind of happens as you're filming.
Mm-hmm. You guys want to talk about some of the comedy in this movie? Because I think, like, for a pretty, you know, jump-scary, left and right, disturbing horror movie, this has, like, some really funny moments in it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's hysterical in places.
Yeah. I love when he gives him the drink and he's like, thank you. And he just puts it in his double bag, zips it up, drinks the rest of what's in his glass. I'm still saying, though. I just think that was so funny.
My favorite comedic moment is when they send up the maintenance guy and he's just standing in the doorway and John's like, come on in. You know, step on in and you can fix this. And the guy's like, I'm not walking in this room. You know what happened in here?
He's like, any dumbass can fix this. I'll just show you.
Yeah.
It's so good.
That is too fucking funny, though. Like, and the real, like, it has this twisted irony to it, too, where, like, that is the last chance he gets to leave. Everything else after that just goes sideways on him. And, like, the room transports him to another reality at a certain point. Like, this isn't a matter of it's blinding him psychologically. Like, he is physically doing things that should allow him to leave the room, and he just cannot. Like, the room is in complete control. It's like a goddamn evil TARDIS or something.
Yeah, it's like, this is what I imagine, like, getting lost in the Bermuda Triangle's like. Like, this is what would happen to you. You're just, like, not, you know, like, you're just gone from our reality, but you're, like, still here. It's like, what the heck? I think it's cool.
Yeah.
He's, like, staring at the guy across the street and slowly realizes it's him. It's kind of fascinating.
That's a really good one. My favorite is still when he goes to walk to the other lady's window, and then when he gets to where it should be, he looks and it's just straight brick for, you know, miles in either direction. It makes no sense. That is such a surreal image, and it's probably one of the better shots in this movie.
Yeah. And dude, the best part about that scene is when he's about to climb in the window and he's almost falling out, but he like has his one hand on the ledge, and then the window like tries to like psych him out, and it like kind of like starts to close on his hand, and like if he had let go there, he would have just fallen, but like it was kind of like fucking with him. It was like, oh, you're about to climb in. Is it gonna close on your hand? And then he just like quickly pulls himself into the room. I just thought that was like a little tiny thing that was like, oh, what a level of dickishness never before seen by a room.
So, yeah, I love like this. The room's got a fucking sarcastic attitude and it's hysterical. But a slightly weird question, because this movie's got multiple endings, and I'm usually all right with that. But what bothers me here is that depending on how you watch it, the ending is different. So, like, there's the original theatrical ending. There's the ending you get in the DVDs. There's the ending you get if you watch it on Netflix. There's the ending you get depending on what country you watch it in.
Wait, I did not know this.
I had no idea that this is the case.
Okay, how does the movie end for you?
It ends with him and his wife in their, like, new apartment or whatever, and he plays the tape recorder.
That is not the actual ending.
What the fuck?
What is the theatrical ending?
Okay,
because I went to go see this in theaters, and I swear that's what I remember seeing.
Okay, so there's the original ending, which is the thing I saw. There's the people are uncomfortable with this feel-good ending, which is what you saw, apparently. There's an ending where... there's like 4 endings to this movie, I think.
Wow, I did not know this at all.
Yeah, so... one of the endings is like exclusive to like Netflix in Japan and Australia or something like that, where he survives everything that happens and then moves back in with his wife, but like his tape recorder is still playing the voice of his daughter, and like that's just how it ends. And then there's another one where him and his wife don't survive, and the rest of his family like investigates what happens and they find the recordings. There's the ending that you talked about where, like, he moves into a new apartment. But then there's the ending I watched that I don't like as much as the one in the book, which is it turns out he died in the room, and Samuel L. Jackson goes to the funeral for him and, like, tries to drop off his recorder to the wife, and the wife doesn't take it. And then it flashes back, and it ends with his ghost is just in the burned room now listening to his daughter's voice over and over again.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah, so this is one of those movies where, like, I just wish I could buy it as opposed to watch it online somewhere, because there are so many endings, and it really depends on where they got their rip from that determines what the movie becomes for you, and it's bizarre.
It's the Blade Runner of Stephen King adaptations.
But at least the Blade Runner cuts are labeled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only ever seen the one cut of this movie where he's in his apartment and his wife, is putting away boxes and he plays his daughter's voice on the tape recorder. And she drops the box. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I saw. That's the ending I had.
Yeah, that's the only ending I've ever seen. I remember I watched this in theaters. I remember I watched it with my dad on, like, Comcast On Demand at one point. And I own the DVD, and that's the ending on the DVD. You're making me want to bust it out and see if it has the alternate endings as special features.
It probably does. So, okay, I'm on the Wikipedia page just because I'm curious now, and I feel like maybe we should hopefully educate the people who are watching it so they know what they're getting into. So, the original, the theatrical ending that you saw is Mike survives. He and Lily are seen back together in their home, although she's unsure of the supernatural events. Lily finds Mike's possessions that he rescued from 1408 and sees that they're still covered in smoke. He says something about bad memories are not meant to be forgotten, they're meant to be lived with. And then they're ready to move on from their daughter's death, but her voice is still on the mini recorder. The ending I saw is the ending that they reshot because test audiences didn't like it, so they got the ending you gave. The original ending is Mike dies in the fire, but he's happy to see the room destroyed. During his funeral, Samuel L. Jackson tries to give his wife his belongings, which she doesn't accept. And then he sits in his car listening to the tape recording with the ghost's voice on it, and then the ghost starts haunting him while he's in the car. And then the movie ends with flashing back into the hotel room where his ghost is just there smoking and listening to his daughter's voice. Then the other alternate ending is he dies in the fire, but Samuel L. Jackson's like, well done. And instead of the funeral, they double over the sounds of the funeral with establishing shots of Los Angeles where Sam and Lily go through Mike's stuff and try to figure out what happened to him. And from there, in the final scene, Sam's office door slams shut, and you hear Mike's father saying, "As I was, you are. As I am, you will be." And then the final alternate ending is Mike survives and moves to Los Angeles, where he plays a tape of Kate's voice from 1408. Lily hears it and looks shocked. Mike stares at Lily strangely. The ending is then shown. And then the ending is only shown in Australia, Japan, and the Netherlands.
Wow.
So that's confusing.
That sounds exactly like the version we watched. That's so weird.
Yeah. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to put that many endings on a movie.
It really is.
Oh
my gosh.
Wow, that's so strange. I never knew that about this. I really got to see if I can hunt those all down.
Because I was tempted to message you guys before this. I'm like, well, hang on a second. How did your movie end? Because I don't know if I watched the same one. I guess I didn't.
That's so weird. Yeah, I don't think we've ever done that before, where we watch different cuts of the same movie.
And they're different cuts by like 3 minutes, but they change the whole movie.
They really do.
God.
That's fascinating. Huh. Okay, anyway, which ending did you prefer, Steve, since it sounds like you've seen both of the two main ones?
I like the one where he dies in the fire and the last shot is his ghost.
Okay, see, that's interesting, because I really like the moment of, we have the skeptic who has now gone through the supernatural experience and now has to deal with a world that is skeptical to him, because obviously, he lit his damn hotel room on fire. People are going to kind of think he's crazy, including his wife. Like, there's this underlying subtext in the way she talks to him about 1408, where she kind of believes him, but not quite. It's a lot of subtext for such a short scene. But then he gets to play the recording. And when she hears that, it's like this total moment of vindication and like, I was wrong and now you're wrong too. And now we know that this happened. And I really, really like the way that leaves it. How about you, Rasko? Which ending from what you can glean did you think would have been better or best fit?
I kind of like the one that I saw, which is I think the one that you saw, Ian.
Yeah, that's fair. You can't really speculate too much on an ending that you haven't seen, but
yeah,
I still. And I mean, I see where you guys are coming from, partly because I like the ending of the short story a lot, where after he gets out of the room, he gives up writing, but at the same time he has like all of these bizarre idiosyncrasies and superstitions that he didn't have in the beginning that kind of destroy his life. Where like he can't stand to look at the sunset because the colors on the sky remind him of the wallpaper in the room. So he physically, like, he closes all the curtains and never leaves his house after a certain time of day. He can't write. He doesn't use any phones because he thinks all of them will try to kill him. It's kind of interesting. Like, he sleeps with all the lights on. He's always alone. He's always having bad dreams. Like, it's a lot like it's a lot like Misery, but they go into more detail as to like the kind of psychological trauma he got from that room.
Yeah, that is interesting that we never really see the toll that surviving these moments have on characters. Like, there's always the horror movie where they get away from the serial killer or slasher or whatever at the last possible minute, but like, we rarely go and deal with like the long-term effects of what going through something like that would have on you.
Absolutely,
right?
And that's kind of why I like Stephen King epilogues so much. It's like he really encapsulates that, like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you survive. You are not the same after this, and I don't know how you're going to deal with it.
Have you guys seen the Halloween 2, like the sequel to Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween?
Yeah.
No.
That movie's
Movie is
kind of about
fucked up.
that. Yeah, I think it's a bad movie, but like that's the part of the movie that's really good.
Yeah.
And it's all about like the fallout of like surviving a serial killer massacre, and it's awesome. Not
that
great,
movie's
just
got
okay.
the coolest ending of any horror movie ever because it's the most artsy nonsense ever.
Yeah, and it's completely counterintuitive to what the first movie was. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the visuals of 1408. The visual effects, the special effects work in here, because it's 2007. This is a pretty CGI heavy film, in a lot of places where it just flat out doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Chris Nolan always talks about CG, and he's like, he's not against it. It's just people get lazy with it, and like they didn't even try to shoot that, and you easily could have. And like the scene that comes to mind for me is the lock turning the inside of the room. I don't know why that needed to be 3D animated. Just build half a door, and film the lock. I don't know. I was really kind of disappointed by that.
Well,
yeah.
I guess part of it with movies like this is that around this time, like, it becomes debatable as to what's cheaper to do. And the movie had a reasonable budget, but still a pretty small budget for what the script must have looked like. And I feel like some of the stuff you could have built would have just been more expensive if you did it, as opposed to do bad CGI.
I don't know, maybe, like, how much would it really cost to go get a door, cut it in half, and put a lock on it, and just film the locking mechanism a couple times in the
Well, see, maybe
set?
not that so much, but, like, other stuff where, like, you could have probably found a way to, like, build the scene with Samuel L. Jackson in the fridge, but as CGI, it's so much easier.
No, that I agree with. It's just like I feel like the CGI gets a little out of hand in this movie, where it's like it begins to take you out of it. And then there's specific visual effects choices on things that I really do not get, because the context for them doesn't really make sense with the way they visually represent it. And that is the two ghosts we see commit suicide.
Uh-huh.
Like, they look like they're, projected from a television or something.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I was going to agree with that.
Yeah, that is, like, visually, like, you could do that if you got something that, like, this is the next Stephen King book right here. If you've got a TV that's killing people, that makes perfect sense. But as far as them just being, like, people that were in the hotel room who have killed themselves, I don't get why they look like they're being projected from an old television.
The channeling.
It looks cooler than, like, it has any reason for.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It's a unique visual way to do ghosts that isn't, transparent, skeletal, or anything like that.
Yeah, because I like that idea, because, like, it really affirms
it's a neat aesthetic.
It's a neat aesthetic. It affirms that the ghost is not actually there, and so you're more afraid of the idea than you are of what's physically happening, and I like that. But like you said, there's no reason why it should look like that. And this could potentially go back to, if the thing haunting the room had a motivation, maybe that would have been okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of stuff in this room, like, that's an interesting, like, look, but I think that it was kind of like a thoughtless choice, like.
And also, like, the killing yourself thing, because a lot of ghosts in this movie apparently killed themselves. Why does he specifically get a noose?
Yeah, that's a good point, because, like, it doesn't really seem to reflect anything in particular about him, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, I could see certain people jumping out, because, I mean, we don't really get to know them, but clearly they all had different types of suicides. I would just want to know, like, if this dude is going to get taught a lesson by this room, I don't particularly understand what him hanging himself would say about him as a person.
It is, like, it feels like just the generic rundown version of suicide. Like, I talk about the Joker blogs all the time, but, like, the Joker blogs has an episode where the Joker's, like, telling a guy that he's going to kill himself, telling the guy that the guy is going to kill himself, not the Joker is going to kill himself. And he runs down, I just can't believe you're going to do it. But how are you going to do it? You could take some pills. Nah, pills are for girls. You could drown yourself, but that might be a little difficult. You'd shoot yourself. Like, he goes through all the, like, list of ways in which, you know, like, really typical ways in which you can kill yourself. And I remember reading people in the comments like, oh, it was wrong to mention pills given how Heath Ledger died. I'm like, it's not, it's just that thing of, like, it feels like it was kind of just thoughtless. They just, like, went through the list of, okay, what are the most common ways people attempt suicide?
Yeah.
And let's write that into the scene. And so, like, in this, it feels like, okay, what's a really common way people commit suicide? They hang themselves. Okay, so he sees himself hanging himself. Like, it doesn't feel like it adds anything.
So the short story, the way the room haunts him is that, like, it does stuff that's very specifically geared at how it's going to kill him, as opposed to ever, like, making him do it or threatening him with it. So, like, the paintings in the room change to, like, hit pictures of him decapitated and stuff like that. And he's got, like, a very specific phobia of fire. And so, like, he breaks out of the room by setting himself on fire, which is partly why he can't, like, look at the sunset ever again at the end of the book, because it reminds him too much of that scene, which is cool and interesting. In this, he's got very particular fears, and he's got very particular insecurities that we get to know of because of the room. I feel like it almost would be more cruel to this guy if it didn't give him the option to kill himself, and it just told him that you have to stay here forever, talking to your daughter or something, or like, because that scene when he's hugging his daughter and she turns into a corpse. Oh my god,
that is so fucking tragic.
That, like, that is the darkest fucking thing, and you don't have to work hard to make that tragic, but it absolutely is. And, like, something like that would be better reflected in him being stuck in the room as opposed to giving him the option to hang himself. Like, I don't understand why the room feels like this is a thing that he needs.
Well, there's also just the fact that, like, okay, this character is an atheist because he has seen a lot of suffering happen in his life to the people that he cares about. Like, you know, obviously his father is some kind of seriously ill, whether that be physically or mentally, and that's why he's in that like, hospital room or something that he sees him in. And then his daughter dies of some kind of disease, I think it's cancer or whatever. His daughter dies of some kind of disease, and there's nothing he can do. He's absolutely powerless against it. So if the room's going to give him an option out via suicide, it should on some level be connected to a physical or medical style of suffering.
You could have almost, like, Twilight Zone it, where, like, okay, do you pick reliving this room or suicide? And he says, okay, suicide. And then suicide is leaving, but now you have terminal cancer.
Yeah, some to that effect. It's just so much that of the particular details are like, you know, and yeah, how do you give someone suicide for what is a physical illness? Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, I'll admit. But,
well,
you know, then...
In particular because, like, so the thing with horror movies like this is that there always comes a point where the person's not afraid of dying anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, giving them the option to kill themselves versus being stuck where they are stops mattering.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he legitimately has gotten far past that point by the time the phone call's like, well, you can either kill yourself or stay here. Either way, for this dude, it wouldn't matter now.
Yeah, and again, that scene where he is holding his daughter is where everything is working on point. Like, that is probably the best written scene, just on the premise of, can you imagine something more cruel to do to somebody?
It's the best acted scene.
Yes, it's fantastic acting, and just as far as just visually demonstrating the death of a child in that way, literally just having her arm go limp.
It's not unexpected.
She doesn't convulse, she doesn't, like, you know, cry or anything like that. It just happens, and he is, again, absolutely powerless to stop it. And it is tragic as fuck.
his daughter in this movie, I feel like, is the most consistently well directed thing because so much of it is centered on her as an actress not being able to move. Like she's either sitting in a bed or she's in a wheelchair, or like it's always something to the effect of like she's just kind of lying there and talking. And the one time she moves is when his ghost moves towards him and then goes limp. Like it's such a cool motif.
Well, don't forget the like ugliest contest thing, and like that's such a sweet kind of memory thing. Like it's sappy, but it's not cliche, which is what I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Maybe I connected that one a lot too because I was the kid that ran around with the video camera doing shit around the house. So I don't know, that one really worked for me. What else can we talk about with the visuals of this? Because did you guys have a favorite shot or visual effect or like scare moment?
Oh,
I really like him looking at himself across the street and the killer coming up behind his reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that in particular looked really cool because the shot is like the building is entirely black, the framing of the window is entirely blue, the person's obscured, it's him, but like he's still in black, so it's like he's a part of the building, and then the killer is in complete color.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I thought that looked really cool.
How about you, Raska?
This is like gonna sound really lame, but it's just a thing that I generally like in movies. I really enjoy scenes where you just get to see like a character kind of like sit around alone and just like drink or just chill and just hang out in a room by themselves. Like, I don't know what it is. I just love scenes like that. And I just liked in the beginning how we just get to see him go to that place. He goes up to the room. He's just sitting around. He pulls out that little basket of little like mini bottles of like bourbon and stuff. He drinks one, and you just see him like walking around the room, laying on his bed, and he just goes to sleep. That was just honestly my favorite shot in the movie.
Oh, you're talking about the very beginning.
Very beginning of this.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's
a
really
weird. About when he
weird.
first gets into 1408, because he does more or less the same thing.
Yeah, which is another reason why I like that part of the movie too.
For me, I really, really like the, where's the wall or where's the window thing. That is a really, really interesting visual representation. But it's also like this thing of that only works the one time. Unless you forget about it, which I think it's hard to do because it is such a striking visual and such a striking like terror moment. That only works on that same level of, oh, holy shit, that one time when you first watch it. And so this movie has a lot of that stuff where it's like, oh, well, this is really interesting the more you think about it, because initially I didn't really pick up on the themes of him being like particularly afraid of like physical side of life until, a couple watch throughs. But, it wants you to watch it multiple times, but some of its best moments only really, really work that first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the wall, there's like, the thing inside the vents, which is another, like, it looks cool, but, like, it's only scary the once. Once you know it's coming, it kind of loses its charm on you.
Yeah, but I think what's kind of cool about this movie, and this is like really like just my personal experience with it, so this could mean absolutely nothing, but to me this feels like the kind of movie that you watch when it comes out, you forget about for 10 years, and then you watch it again and you kind of remember what happened, but it's better than like a lot of like the in-between stuff that you don't remember is actually pretty good, and you've forgotten about a lot of it. So you kind of come back with a fresh set of eyes. That was at least my experience, because I remember when this movie came out, I saw it like once it was out on DVD, but I haven't seen it since then, and I haven't thought about it since then. And I thought that this was going to be kind of boring, but when I went back and watched it, I actually liked this movie. So I don't know.
It is surprisingly good. Like, every time I watch this, I'm like, this is better than I remember.
Yeah.
This is just a really good horror movie to also like show people, because I know my friends and I we have like random horror movie nights where we just come over and like watch a random horror movie that one of us hasn't seen yet. The moment I finished this, I'm like, I texted him like, so you guys want to watch 1408 this weekend?
Nice.
It's one of those things where, like, I think this would be a cool thing to like make other people sit through. It's a good experience watching, even if it's not like the best movie. And horror movies live or die on, like, I think how much atmosphere they can build outside of the people. So like the movie can have its own atmosphere, but part of the fun is just watching people react to it. And like The Witch is an interesting example where, like, if you're watching that with your friends, that doesn't end with all of you kind of just like laughing at it. It all ends with all of you kind of unsettled and weirded out. As opposed to slasher movies, which ends with all of you kind of laughing at it and talking about how dumb this was. I feel like 1408 is that movie where, like, you're talking all the way through it with the people you're watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, we've been pretty praising of this, besides a couple little things. Does anyone have any, like, significant problems they think exist in this film?
Okay, I have one question. Maybe I'm just not thinking hard enough about this, because, to be honest, I haven't. But when he's at the end of the movie and he lights the room on fire, it's burning, would he have still been rescued if he hadn't thrown the ashtray out the window, creating like a backdraft effect where like oxygen came into the room and the fire expanded? Because, like, I feel like he didn't need to throw that at the thing and he just wouldn't have been injured.
Well, see, I think that was more...
Or was it the choice of him choosing to do that? That, like, was that him saying, like, I'm going to let this fire kill me, I'm going to throw the thing at the window and die? Or, like, I just don't know, like, what that was. And
see, I didn't even read it as like a physical reason. I read it as, like, he throws the ashtray because cigarettes are, like, his motif of how he's not dealing with anything. So, like, he's got a phobia of physical illness that he's compensating for by doing something that will give him a physical illness. And so, like, him tossing the cigarettes as opposed to constantly saying, I'm going to go get cigarettes, was his way of, like, breaking out of what the room was torturing him for. I didn't even think of it on the level of, like, this is a thing that's physically causing a reaction type of thing.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, she's already told the firefighters what room to go look for him in. So I feel like they were going to get there eventually anyway. Whether or not he would have survived it, I don't know.
See, and this is partly why I like the book Fire better, because in the movie he throws it at the room, and in my head I'm wondering, well, why does this work if it's a supernatural alternate reality room? Like, why would it be susceptible to fire? But in the book, he lights himself on fire and psychs himself out.
Huh. Interesting. I don't know, like, I feel like lighting the room on fire is like one of those things where we never see the room use fire. And end of the day, it is still physically a part of the rest of this hotel. So I think the room on some level is alive and is aware of itself and what it can and can't get away with. The thing that I found the oddest is he is... and maybe this is due to the way they recut the ending so many times, Steve, is when he comes back into the room after getting that first, like, I'm free of it, the room's burnt down. And that hasn't happened yet. Like, when he left the room, it was iced over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might almost entirely be because they recut that ending. Like, because the ending is supposed to just be him... I like, the director's ending for this movie is that he dies in the fire and the last thing you see is his ghost in the burned room. So, like, anything that deals with the burned room outside of that is recut and weird, like, continuity-wise.
Well, no, because the daughter appearing... Oh, wait, so you mean, like, the ghost... The scene with the daughter and the ghost would have been when he was already dead.
Yeah.
See, I don't like that. I don't like the idea that happens after he dies. I feel like that is, if anything was going to make him want to kill himself, it was that.
Oh, do you mean like the scene where, like, his daughter, his daughter dies in his arms, or?
Yeah.
Oh no, okay, no, that's before he dies. Then.
Yeah, okay, because I was about to say that doesn't work as well then. No, okay, but just that scene takes place in the burned room, so, like, continuity-wise, it wouldn't make any sense for the room to be burned yet. like, and you know, I'm only thinking of this just now, but like the last time before he gets, you know, before he has his whole hallucination of being like, you know, waking up on the beach, all that stuff. The room is iced over, frozen cold, right?
Yeah.
And like the last time we see the room before we go back there is when he's awash in the water from the ship and stuff like that. Then when we get back, the room is like burnt to a crisp, which is just odd from a visual standpoint before it puts itself back together. So
yeah, the room's design's really odd. Because, like, also partly because Samuel L. Jackson's character's like, once a month, we fix up the room. And they're in and out in, like, 10 minutes. But, like, I feel like a lot of these specific deaths would require more maintenance than just, like, fucking changing the sheets and cleaning the bathroom.
Well, no, I think the implication there was they maintain it now that it's already cleaned up, but he doesn't let anyone live in there.
No, sure, but like I feel like they're given each person that dies in this room, I feel like there's certain levels of physical damage to the room that like it would maintain and use as it's using the ghosts to haunt the main guy, and I feel like that would be a more interesting thing as opposed to the room just like constantly shifting realities to bizarre appearances that don't seem to have any connection to these deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the iced-over room looks cool, but what does that have to do with anything?
He talks about something about the final circle of hell is frozen over.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's an interesting idea, especially because, like, when he gets to the room, it's like he's sweating and he's way too hot and all this stuff. So I think that might kind of be like connected because I think there is some justification for that, given that he is an atheist and a skeptic in this. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
Can I just say that I love how they really drive home the point that like it's really hot in the room. Something about that when I was watching this movie, thinking about like if I was in a hotel room like that and it was really hot. That would just make everything that much worse. Like, I was like, I would feel like I would be more scared because the air would literally just feel so thick and it would just feel more haunted. I don't know. It's like a weird thing. Like, that really was effective. I'm glad that, like, they made sure he had, like, sweat running down him all the time and stuff like that.
I thought they did a really good job, like, establishing what the room's layout is and the kind of blandness of it before it starts haunting him. Like, you really get a feel for what the whole room is, and you get kind of like that sort of like, we've all been in this sort of shitty hotel room, but it's fine kind of thing before weird stuff starts happening. And then when it purposely starts changing and people start coming up and out, in and out of him, like, random familiarities of rooms start to seem creepier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about the choice he makes to go in the room that is presented to him when he's talking to Samuel L. Jackson? Like, obviously he's very cocky and he's a non-believer and all that stuff, but like, Samuel L. Jackson gives him a lot of fucking content before he lets him into that room. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a ton. And I don't know, like, is his choice to go in there beyond the level of skepticism?
I don't think
that
so.
This character... No, you don't think so?
Well, I mean, like,
No.
he at that moment, he has to do one of two things. Either stick to his guns and go to the room, or radically change his worldview. And I just don't think people are that willing to just radically change everything they believe.
Yeah. And again, context with the short story, like part of in the short story, he says he's physically rattled and terrified by what Samuel L. Jackson tells him, but he chooses to go in just so he doesn't have to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. And part of my thing with stuff like that is I think the first 40 minutes or so of this movie are good, but they're good for what they are, which is all the conceit to get to the damn movie, which is he's terrified in a room. So, like, I mostly have very little problem with that just because he needs to get to the room before the story starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, Samuel L. Jackson does a great job in this. Like, all the other actors are pretty much forgettable. Even though, like, honestly, the best actor besides John Cusack is the child, but Samuel L. Jackson's up there too, and he gets a lot of great lines, and I want Samuel L. Jackson to be in more horror movies. He's good at terrifying people.
Jackson. I missed like the kind of subdued background character that imparts sarcastic and terrifying wisdom.
Yeah. Should review Black Snake Moan at some point, because that is a really interesting movie that just no one has ever seen.
What are the other two Stephen King adaptations with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson? Because there's two other movies. There's like a trilogy of movies based on Stephen King stories with those two actors in them. One of them was a terrible movie that was like on Amazon, I think.
I have no idea.
No idea.
Let me Google it.
This sounds exciting.
Yeah.
The John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen King trilogy.
Okay, I'm gonna Google this.
That sounds like the best. That sounds like the
Jackson.
absolute best Walmart, multi-feature
Honestly,
DVD you could ever find.
Okay, so it's 1408. It's The Cell, and let's see, what's the other one? The Cell, 1408. Come on, Google. Fuck, I'm gonna have to go to the second page.
Oh God, just give up now.
Honestly, though, when the fuck is the second page ever helpful?
I don't know, man. I don't think it is. I don't even know why Google bothers having a second page, to be honest
Honestly,
with you.
though. Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen King movie. We have to refine this search.
Damn. Okay, let me ask you about this while Steve is looking. Rasco, how'd you feel about him randomly being able to get a Wi-Fi connection in 2007 on a laptop?
That's a really good fucking point. Damn.
I'm extremely uncomfortable anytime I have to watch anybody using like 2000s technology. Like, it literally makes me feel cringy and like awkward. Like, I'm like, computers look so stupid.
They really do. Oh my god.
Like, I can't watch it. Like, it actually makes me cringe. But it's at least better than in Amazing Spider-Man 2 when they're like uploading something from an airplane in like the year like 1996 or some shit.
Good point. Yeah. I don't know, like it's weird because part of me thinks that's the room letting him have that, it's like the room. You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? It's gonna be awesome. Everyone, get ready to come in your pants.
I know
you ready?
What to do, yeah.
I like the way the room poisons him with hope.
Dead. I love that.
Yeah, like I think you can justify it as, the room gives him that chance to talk to his wife just so he can have the hope that someone can get him out of there. And then it tortures him some more because it, takes over for him and says that it's gonna take his wife next, and it's a really cool scene. So like I think it works on that level. I'm a little like it's just a little out of nowhere though, because like at no other point does the room use like any of his modern technology. Well, actually no, I take that back because it fucks with his tape recorder at one point. I don't know. It's just a little. I guess I put computer and tape recorder into very separate realms of reality.
Well, I mean, especially considering how different computers are now. Like, if you were talking like 80s laptop and a tape recorder, like, I feel like that's basically the same thing at that point.
Yeah, I agree. There's an old episode of Frasier where Niles and Frasier decide to write a psychology book together, and Niles brings over his laptop, and it's like, it's a monstrosity.
Oh, I love that episode.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not finding any other movie with these two, but we have to watch The Cell at some point because it sounds amazing.
It's actually terrible.
Oh, no, that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah, it's terrible in a great way, but it's terrible.
Oh, no, I'm sure. That is a drunk review.
Oh, yes.
That sounds funny.
Can we do an episode of Geeky Gentlemen, intoxicated episode?
Please.
Can we
Well, I don't
that?
drink or do drugs, so...
Intoxicant of choice, as long as it's legal.
Please.
I don't drink or do drugs, though.
Well, then you can listen to Rasco and I while we do both.
Yeah. Well, I can't
Okay.
drink, but I'm in Cali, so, we just legalized that marijuana this year.
There you go. You can be high and I'll be drunk on wine. It'll be a fantastic episode.
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll commit to that. That's all that the comments are going to be on this video. You know that, right? That's all
right.
it's going to be. It's like, people saying I cannot wait for that episode. You know what? Hold on. Let's look here. What is December 31st is a Sunday. We should do that as a New Year's special.
That would be awesome.
God, we need to.
Oh man, that'd be pretty freaking nuts. I'd be down if you guys are. If you want to spend your New Year's recording with me, fuck it, why not? We could do it as a Geeky Gentleman live show. That'd be fun.
Hell yeah.
Okay, anyway, back to the movie.
The only other thing I really wanted to mention about this one is I always say that, like, you will never find a good horror movie without a great soundtrack, and you'll never find a bad horror movie with a good soundtrack. This movie's got, like, nothing. I don't think there is a soundtrack. Like, it's just the most bland thing.
Yeah, but it's surprisingly good. Like, this is using score effectively, right?
See,
like,
I don't think so.
Really? You don't think it uses its score just well enough?
I don't think so. I feel like
it doesn't become a
way
distraction?
too subdued.
I don't know. I like it. It doesn't ever become a distraction. It just sets a right kind of tone and mood, and it doesn't want you thinking about the score. It wants you focused on what the characters are doing, what's happening. It's nice and in the background and forgettable, but it works in the moment, which is exactly what it wants to do.
I feel like the score is just bare minimum of, like, movies need a score, so here's sounds to go with the movie. I don't think, like, it's a good score for the material.
Really?
Yeah, like, I just thought it was the most generic and hardly ever connects to a scene music there could be. Like, it's, I think unoffensive is the word ultimately. Like, it's the most unoffensive regardless of how you edit this in. This music does not change what's happening in the scene.
I'd like to see someone rescore this then, because I've seen people do that shit with movies and stuff. There's a really interesting series of YouTube videos someone did where they rescored the Batman warehouse fight scene from BVS with all the different Batman themes that exist, and that's really cool. They did like Arkham Knight, Shirley Walker, Batman 89, Nolan, Batman 66. The 66 one's my personal favorite.
I feel like with this movie and with this tone, you could have almost gotten away with doing more with the music and almost make it feel like a whimsical hotel elevator kind of score.
That could have worked, or just more of the, like, it would have felt very Christine, but fuck it, I'd have been down. Just do more of the hotel playing some snarky ass music. Yeah,
like almost like what we like to do with movies now, where, like, we just have a interlude of a ton of pop songs that kind of play with the themes. I feel like music in this movie could have really worked to some degree because it's so much about him talking to himself that, like, I don't know, I feel like there's lots of potential here, especially with, like, that sort of black comedy tone it's doing with its horror, that the music could have been something and it just isn't.
Yeah, but, like, the songs it uses are really effective. Again, what a perfect choice for a song to play. The room to do. And, like, I don't know, it might have been emphasized more if the only, like, other time, if you heard other songs between those. Because you only hear the room played the one song, but if you'd been hearing other songs in between it, and then at the end of his first hour, it started playing that song again, you'd be like, oh my, that would have made the reveal. And that's the reveal you get still, is like, oh my god, it's only been an hour. Like, that's a great reveal, but if it's, oh my god, it's only been an hour, and I didn't even think of it because of all these other songs that the room has played throughout all this, that could have been really, really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I know I could name some stuff here. Like, when he goes back into the room after trying to leave from the window, the ink drops, or no, the ink spots cover of when the swallows come back from Capistrano would have been so fucking perfect right there for that snarky attitude the room has. And you need like that all, like, just Christine used all like 50s rock, and the room could use all like, 20s sounding, classic big band music. That'd have been great.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that, absolutely. I think there's so much potential to like rescore this movie, and I wish they did.
I have no idea how people do that. Like, how do you get access to the scenes without the music in them?
I feel like what they probably do is they just like try and rip as much music out of the video as possible. They don't actually get like soundless scenes.
I don't
like
know.
I don't think there's a clean way to do that.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of know how to do it, but it would not be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're about at the end of this. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings then. I'll go first. I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 dead little girls in your arms.
Oh shit, dude.
The
Yeah.
new Marilyn Manson album.
Dead little girls in your arms.
Causing controversy across the Bible Belt.
How about you, Rasco?
I'm going to give this also 4 out of 5 little bottles of liquor.
There you go. Steve?
I'm gonna give this 3.5 out of 5 randomly terrifying nooses.
Okay, cool. Steve, what are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're talking about what I think a lot of people consider like the best of the new era of horror movies, The Conjuring.
Okay. Should be a good time. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the beta
the
male
exile.
cuck. Sorry.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
You two are so out of practice.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Oh, it's been a while.
Steve?
The Exile.
I'm the beta male cuck.
Yeah, that was a pretty beta male cuck move, Rasco.
It was. No, it was an alpha move because I went for number 2, even though I knew I should have been 3rd. Don't you call me a beta male?
Oh, man. All right. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Ah!